I've been a record breaker, taking credit as an educator. I've been known to spit the flows and make it shaky, shaky thing. Popping, locking, stopping, let it hang. Watch us as we drop this hip hop, it's like it stings. We make the whole room drop and everybody sing. We want the funk. We gotta have that funk. We kick it old school, we think we're so cool. We take it back to the past, we gonna act a fool. Up jumps the middle finger, make my
Hello. Welcome to Sports Buzz, the Fanatical View. I am your host, Scott D. Lewis, here live in studio, Comcast Cable, Channel 23, downtown Danbury, Connecticut, on this very crisp fall, very nice though, but certainly crisp fall, October 18th day. Nice to see the sun shining, at least, even with the cooler temperatures. A little break from all that rain we've had. If you are a gardener, I think you should be paying attention to these temperatures, however, because we could be having a frost. They are warning as early as tonight. I looked at the temps ranges, and I do not think we're going to get a frost tonight, but I would say Monday is a very good shot at a frost. So if you got any vegetables lingering in the garden, much like I do, I picked some more last night, tomatoes and peppers. The herbs are still doing good, kale of course. You might want to get some of that stuff out of the garden, that last harvest, because the frost is coming and it's going to come soon. But it has been pretty nice to feel some of this crisper fall weather, and certainly nice to see the sunshine. We are here 6:30 to 7 live, and there's the phone number, 203-792-4101 if you want to call in. It's the fastest talk sports show in all the land, so get on the horn and get that call in early if you want to make the call, or late. We'll still be here until 7. 203-792-4101 is the number. We are still working with my right-hand man, Mr. Bob Rao Jr., as the director. Next week we are threatened by our regular director that he will actually be here. We'll see if that works out, and maybe we'll get to hear Bob's voice out here for once. It's been a while. But Bob is directing his show Spotlight On Tuesday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 12. He says pretty soon he will have coverage of what was a very successful Southern New York Racing Association event this past weekend at the Vespucci Lodge. One of the best turnouts I've ever had. I actually talked to Dave King before the show as well. He was performing there. And of course, Dave and Candy are the two people behind the scenes here, making sure all these shows get done. And he said it was really a great turnout, so a good event on Sunday. So you can look for coverage of that from Bob on some upcoming Spotlights On, Tuesdays at 9, Wednesdays at 12. Tyler, our guy who's been really stepping up lately, he is here again doing audio. We have another new trainee, a local guy. Gary is here watching everything and just taking in all the stuff. Dave said we set a good example, so I hope we don't mess anything up and we actually do that this evening. We will see if that can take place. All right, we're going to get into it. There was other things that went well. The Fatty Roots at Local Palooza was good. You hear their music behind us. I have 3 video shoots done now, and I will be editing throughout the fall and winter, so maybe we'll see a special with all that at some point, and you'll get to see some of them in action. We do like it that we have their music behind us every week, so we'll see how that goes. All right, so it's baseball, it's fall, it's the October Classic almost. We are ready for the World Series next week, but we still have some unfinished business here to take care of as Game 5 happens deep in the heart of Texas, down in Houston tonight. And hello, Houston, we've had a problem for you Astros the last 2 nights in a row. And Jackie Bradley Jr. with the grand slam in Game 3 was a big part of what took place. And then he backed it up with a 2-run shot last night to put the Red Sox back in front. JBJ, New Jack City, has delivered 9 RBIs in the last 3 games with 2 outs. All of those RBIs coming with 2 outs as he hit the 3-run triple in Game 2 in Fenway as well. That really got them the victory in that game. So JBJ is flirting with Man Ram, Manny Ramirez, and Big Papi David Ortiz territory, who have the records for most RBIs in a playoff series for the Red Sox, both with 10 and 11 respectively. And he's at 9 right now as they head to Game 5, which is still down there in Houston. and JBJ is getting it done. Known for his defense, struggles sometimes with his offense, but it is fantastic when he delivers, and he has done that the last 2 nights in a row. And a great game last night ended on this spectacular play by Andrew Benintendi, the Killer Bees, as they like to call him. Benintendi, Betts, Bradley, you got Brock Holt, all of them. Bogarts getting it done. And he pulled what I would consider a throwback to another Killer Bee, Tom Brunansky, with the big catch to clinch a division back in 1991, I think it was. A memorable diving catch for Red Sox fans. And Benintendi gets this done with the bases loaded last night against Bregman, who the Astros hit the panic button and moved him to the leadoff spot. Dropped Springer to number 2. Springer continued to be productive, but Bregman was 0 for 5. Little surprised that they did that they would shake their lineup up. Very interesting that they did that, and Benintendi got Kimbrel, the closer, off the hook with that huge catch to end the game, and the diving catch up 2, bases loaded, 2 out, and he secured it and got it done. In a game that was wild, 8-6 was the final, but how about this for the scores and how it went back and forth? 2-0 Red Sox, then it was 2-1, then it was 3-1, and then the Astros chipped away, made it 3-2, and then tied it 3-3, and then went ahead 4-3. Red Sox came right back, tied it 4-4. Then they fell back behind 5-4 before Jackie Bradley Jr.'s 2-run homer put them back in front for a good 6-5. They chipped in another one to make it 7-5, added another in the 8th to make it 8-5 before the Astros got one in the bottom of the 8th, 8-6, but they couldn't get any more, and that was it. 8-6 was the final. Slugfest for sure, as the Red Sox held on for the 3-1, you would think, commanding lead. Now, the Red Sox are no strangers from teams coming from behind 3-1. And we'll get to this fan interference in a second, Bob. But they are no stranger to that. Because we all know when they came back from the 3-0 deficit, of course that meant they had to come back from 3-1 against the Yankees in 2004. But they also came from behind 3-1 against the Indians in 2007 before they went to the World Series to win it. And they also, before going to that World Series, which they lost to the New York Metropolitans, they had to come from behind 3-1 against the Angels. And that was, of course, the Dave Henderson home run in Anaheim against Donnie Moore, rest his soul, as he gave up that game-tying home run, and then Dave Henderson hit the game-winning double later in that game, and they came back to Fenway and won game 6 and 7. Which is what the recipe was in the Cleveland series. They came from behind. They came back home after winning game 5 on the road, winning game 6 and 7. The Yankee Stadium won. They won game 4 and 5 in Fenway before winning game 6 and 7 in Yankee Stadium. So they know the history, and they are the team that has done it. And also, speaking of history, historical Grand Slams, they have 7 Grand Slams all time in the postseason, and the last 3 have been led directly to World Series titles. Shane Victorino getting the home run in the deciding game, I believe it was, in the World Series in 2013. David Ortiz, of course, hit the memorable come from behind, a walk-off grand slam where Torrey Hunter went over the wall into the bullpen in Fenway Park in that game 1 against the Tigers in the ALCS, which led to them going to the World Series. And J.D. Drew hit a memorable grand slam against the Angels that sent them to that 2007 World Series, which they won. So Red Sox fans looking at that JBJ grand slam and thinking of recent vintage and how that led to World Series titles, but we will not get ahead of ourselves because there is a lot to do. And there have been a lot of action, a lot of activity. Let's get to that catch. Mookie Betts at the wall with a spectacular, that's elevation, Holmes, spectacular athletic effort by Mookie Betts, going up in the air, timing it just right. His glove was in perfect position to snag this ball and make the catch, which would have robbed Altuve of a game-tying 2-run homer in the bottom of the first inning. The fans it was actually his movement going into the fan's hands, which closed his glove before he could make the catch. And you see the guy on the right is at the railing, and I think maybe when they looked at the replay to see this, they look at that and they couldn't overturn the call that Joe West made on the field, which was fan interference. The two guys in the middle are the ones who made contact with Betts, and they did clearly make contact, clearly closed his glove before he could secure the ball. And the ball did pop back into the field of play, but who did it go off of? Fans, player, what? So the question becomes, if a fan reaches over the fence, it's no questions asked, interference. But if the defensive player goes into the stands, it's anybody's ball, typically at that point. So it is questionable as to whether or not they got this right. There was no good side angle because the security guard actually blocked the camera going straight down the line. So they could not see the side angle view to see if the fans were reaching out over the fence. I mean, here you can see the guy is clearly on the railing, reaching over, and the other guys are reaching straight out. So, I mean, it was just a tremendous effort, and the effort ends up getting rewarded. You can argue it all day and night if you want. I mean, the manager was interviewed in game, and for him to say what he did, I thought was somewhat accurate. For them to presume he would make that spectacular catch was unbelievable. But that is kind of what the ruling was. He was in perfect position. He had it timed just right. His height was there. I do think he would have been able to at least get the ball into the glove. The impact of the wall might have then jarred it loose, but at that point he might have brought it into field of play, making it a double instead of a home run. And we were talking actually before the show, Gary even mentioned this with me, Gary, who's checking out things, one of our new trainees, and we thought if they could have split the baby and gave this a ground rule double, that would have been the fairest thing to do. But that is not part of what the ruling can be. It had to be either home run or fan interference out, and the ruling is out. Altuve is out on the play, no home run, and Porcello clearly did not have it. They have been robbing Peter to pay Paul with Porcello throughout this playoffs. They went to him in relief against the Yankees, but that was in Game 1 before he came back and started Game 4. In this series against the Astros, they went to relief with Porcello in Game 2. So with the extra work in the Yankee series, then they push him in Game 2, and then they bring him back in Game 4. He clearly did not have it last night like he did against the Yankees. And here we see the guy who has had it. Nathan Eovaldi has been pitching lights out. He pitched tremendous in Game 3 in Houston in that game that they pulled away from late, 8-2. Some other question marks for what has been going on. I realize, they're trying to win a World Series, so they got to go as hard and as far as they can with everybody. So, you're going to need yeoman's work, and you're going to need guys really stepping up. So that is kind of the nature of the beast. But Alex Cora is really rolling the dice with some things he's doing, including some defensive stuff. He's been working some things at third place. Rafael Devers here. We see him making some defensive play. I thought it was interesting that he pulled Eduardo Nunez for a pinch runner in the game instead of letting Nunez continue to play out the defensive side of the ball until he was up later, when it would have been a righty-lefty matchup when they would have wanted Nunez bat in the game. And then Nunez made an error in that game, which almost caught them. Unfortunately, they did pull away afterwards. But so decisions all abound. The decision to pull Chris Sale early after Game 4, he had that tough second inning where he gave up some runs. Things got away from him with 2 outs, and he walked some guys, hit a batter. But then he settled down and went 1-2-3 in inning 3 and 4 and looked sharp. His pitch count was up in the 80s at that point. They pull him after that, and they go to Joe Kelly for 2 innings in inning 5 and 6 in that Game 1. And Kelly blew it in Game 6 or in inning 6 thanks to an error. Actually, that was an unearned run that he gave up to cost them the lead in that game, and they end up losing that game as the Astros tacked on late against the bullpen. Some other stuff before we get to Kimbrel and what's been going on with him, I thought it was interesting and I thought it was dubious and uncertain why he would go Matt Barnes in the 8th inning of Game 4, the Bethel kid, Bethel native. You've got an 8-2 lead in that situation. Matt Barnes is one of your top, most reliable guys. Why you press him in that situation? I was a little curious why he put him in there. I think at that point, you got to use some of your other guys like Eduardo Rodriguez, Brandon Workman, Heath Embry, those type of guys with a big lead. But he used Barnes, who he got in a big spot last night and came in and threw a punch out, but he couldn't use him for long last night. So, I'm a little curious as to why he did that. And here we see our guy, Mike the Met Maniac, Jet Fanatic, showing up. He was on vacation last week. We're happy to see him, so he's going to get his headset on, and I'll have somebody to throw some things off of here. He'll be mic'd up in a second, but I thought it was interesting with Barnes. And then, Kimbrel last night, who we know has been shaky. We know he's also never gone for a 6-out save. You got that insurance run in the 8th inning to make it 8-5. You have a 3-run lead now at this point, and you go Kimbrel for 6 outs. I think you got to think about something else there with him, especially when you get that insurance run. That's asking an awful lot. He gave up a run in the 8th. He was aided by a great defensive play by Mookie Betts throughout the lead runner who had a single. Tony Kemp, who's got speed, tried to stretch it to a double, and Betts nailed him on a perfect throw to get him out. So that helped Kimbrel in the 8th before he did give up that run. And then in the 9th, it was sweating it out as he has continued to have trouble finding the strike zone. And, he was really in trouble there, but he gets a great defensive play by Benintendi, and all's well that ends well. And now we got to see what happens, because Chris Sale, after that Game 1, ended up checking into the hospital with a stomach virus, so he cannot go as he's still recovering, not up to full strength. I am curious to see if they think he might be up to full strength to come out of the bullpen if they have the lead tonight and they are looking to close out the series. Alex Cora has done some interesting things with his starters. I would not be surprised if you saw him or maybe Evaldi coming back on that sort of situation. David Price is supposed to start tonight, and we'll see how it goes. He was warming up, getting into a full lather last night in the bullpen. He said, and I don't know if I would trust David Price as far as I could throw him at this point, but he said maybe that'll make him be a little sharper coming into tonight's game. He'll be going against Verlander, who we know is a lights-out, all-time great regular season and postseason starter. So it's going to be tough for the Red Sox to get some runs, and we'll see what happens in tonight's game. They get Game 6 and 7 back at home Saturday and Sunday if needed. Of course, they'd like to close it out and get it done as fast as they can. They have won 4 straight games on the road in this playoffs. Remember winning Game 3 and 4 in Yankee Stadium. Now winning Game 3 and 4 down there in Houston. So we'll see what happens. Mike is here. He is mic'd up. Hello there, Mike. How you doing? Not too bad. You can probably tell I'm a little excited about my Red Sox, feeling good about what's been going on. I know you were away last week. Where did you head off to out of the States?
It was on a cruise.
Nice. Yeah. He was on a cruise, and he is back. I hope everything was good on that. No hurricanes, no nothing?
Well, we ran into some problems in the Bahamas.
Oh. Well, we'll have to hear about that. Hopefully you didn't have any food poisoning situations or stomach ailments like our boy Chris Sale.
No, I hope. I didn't hear about that, by the way. We will have to talk about that.
All right. Have you been catching up with the sports and what's been going on?
Yeah, actually today I just found out that Eric Flowers was cut by the Giants. I was like, what?
Oh, Mike McFadden is jumping to some football on me. But yeah, they cut him. I think that was last week. I don't think Bob thinks that the Giants are worth our time at this point, but we'll get to them in a minute. We'll get to them in a minute. All right, so we're going to keep it moving. Red Sox tonight, we'll see if they can close it out. Dodgers, Brewers are on a day off. They head to Milwaukee with the Dodgers now holding a 3-2 lead after the Brewers jumped out to that 2-1 lead. Remember, they shut out the Dodgers in Game 3 in L.A., but the Dodgers have come back. Clayton Kershaw pitched a tremendous game last night. He has that star-crossed playoff history. He's finally had some moments last year, but remember, he also blew leads in that postseason as well against the Astros. So he's still up and down as far as it goes, but he did pitch well last night, and they won it to take that 3-2 lead. I don't know if you saw this. I mean, I don't know with what's going on with all the analytics and all this new stuff with openers instead of starters. What is the point of having your starter, Wade Miley, go out there to face one batter last night in this game? And there we see Yuseo Puig, who you have to give him credit for his emotion and his passion. He is unbelievable. He gets that hit last night to add a couple runs or another run to the score, and he is immediately looking back at the dugout, hands in the air, gesturing, and just waving to the crowd as he's running to first base. I mean, you gotta love his passion, if nothing else.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he has had some moments where he's had to be sat down for things, but he's into it at least.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, what is the point of having your starter go one pitcher or one batter who he walks? And now Wade Miley is going to be the starter in Game 6. I mean, Wade Miley is a guy who's a legitimate starter. It's not like the Oakland situation, the Tampa situation, where you don't necessarily have lights-out starters. You got to work this bullpen by committee thing, and you got all that going on. I mean, he's a guy who could have given you a 3-2 lead. I mean, the guy they went to actually pitched very well after that. But at the same time, I don't get it. Why have him get ready for a game, come in, pitch to one guy, walk him, and then he's out? Remember, that phone line's open, 203-792-4101. We're inside 10 minutes, so if you want to call, get on it quick. It's running out of time. Let's move to the NFL. We'll see what happens. I think the Brewers are going to force a Game 7 there. I think with Verlander tonight, you got to expect the Astros are not going to get swept 3 games in a row in Houston. They got to win one game down there, but the Red Sox are playing extremely well right now, looking good. So, maybe they can just close it out. We'll see. NFL this weekend, we had the game of the year, Sunday night, Patriots, Chiefs. In the second half, the Chefs were cooking it up a little bit. Mahomes is Mahomey. He can get it done. They were down 24-9 at the half, and they outscored the Patriots 31-19 in the second half. But the Patriots get the field goal late, 43-40 as time expires after this big throw to Gronkowski down the sideline. Brady set it up with that throw, and they win it 43-40. It was the old versus the new, as my guy Fatty Roots, Mr. Mike Summers, was texting me during this game. He is a big Chiefs fan. We know former Evil director Kevin Gallagher, who's got his show on here, Time Out with Kevin Gallagher. He's a big Chiefs fan. I haven't heard from him at all this year with his Chiefs. At that point, 5-0. But now they are 5-1, which means the Rams are the only undefeated team left in the NFL at 6-0. But it was a tremendous game. So we'll see what happens. Patriots got their act together, looking much better now at 4-2, tied atop the top with the Dolphins at 4-2. How about the Dolphins beating the Bears with their backup, Osweiler? That was surprising. Bears coming off the bye week down in Miami. Real big letdown for the Bears. So now the Bears fall to 3-2, and they lost that game in overtime. And the Patriots head to Chicago, the Windy City, this weekend. So all of a sudden, the Bears, who were 3-1 with the bye, heading to Miami, who had lost 2 in a row and were down to their backup. You'd think the Bears got to win that game, but now all of a sudden they can fall to 3-3 with the Packers moving up and past them, and maybe the Vikings as well. You're going to get to see the Vikings this weekend, Mike, as they take on your Jets, Jets, who suddenly are 3-3 after their back-to-back wins at home, and they get a third straight game at home. Tough opponents, too. I mean, not great years necessarily for the Broncos or the Colts. Vikings have been a little up and down, but, I mean, that is, historically, if you can say you take down the Broncos and the Colts in back-to-back weeks, and then you get the Vikings as well, see what they can do against them, that's a pretty good stretch. So good job by the Jets getting back on their feet, 42-34, and there was a little history at the stadium this weekend as they had the 50th anniversary to mark the Jets-Colts Super Bowl, where it was number 1, and there was the guarantee from Joe Willie Namath as he got it done in that dramatic fashion, and that was really the game that really set the tone for the AFC and the merger in the NFL as they won it there. So that was good seeing them. And down there, it reminded me that's the only guarantee besides Messier, really, that ever came through in the big spot where a guy went out on the limb, said we're going to win this game in a big time spot, and they did win it. Messier did the same thing against the Devils, as we remember, and he backed it up with a hat trick, natural hat trick, right? Some other big games this weekend. Well, not so big for our guy Bob. The G-men falling way out of contention now. Their season looks over again. They start the year with this 1-5 record. Unbelievable. 34-13 defending champ Eagles got their act together the other night on Thursday. So the Giants go from, what's with the schedule makers? If a team has a Thursday night game, why do you give them the extra night where they play on a Monday? I mean, you got teams that play on Sundays that got to turn around and play Thursday. The Redskins did the same thing. They had a bye week. They come back for a Monday night game. Why do they get the extra day off? Hello, schedule makers. Get your act together and figure that out. Don't build in these extra days. All right, we're down to a couple minutes. Other big game this past weekend that I thought was big. What is with this non-rivalry? Bengals off to a good start this year. They lose to the Steelers 28-21 after they took the lead late. Then they let the Steelers go down in the last minute of 19. The Steelers have won 16 of the last 18 games against the Bengals. That cannot sit well for the people in the Queen City of Cincinnati. Not good. Rams, we mentioned, only undefeated team as they won at 23-20. Snow was on the ground out there in Denver this weekend. Games this weekend, actually a pretty good slate. Some important games early too, and good division matchups. Titans versus Chargers, that's a good matchup. Chargers have only lost to the Chiefs and the Rams. Arguably the two best teams in the league.
Okay.
Other games, Broncos versus Bucks, or Browns versus Bucks. Browns suddenly, a hot team everybody wants to talk about. Bucks had that 2-0 start. They're falling apart. Texans, Jags. That's a big division. Texans have suddenly won 3 in a row, and the Jags got crossed out in Big D. How about them Cowboys against that Jaguar defense? Crushed them. Panthers at Eagles, Saints at Ravens, Cowboys at Redskins. Always a good division battle. Bengals at Chiefs. So good football this weekend. We are going to be back next week, and this week it's, as we mentioned, Jets, Vikings, and Giants Monday night against the Falcons, and the Patriots going to Chicago. We will be back next week. We will see who is in the World Series. The series should be underway by that point. Hopefully, maybe we get a little LA versus Boston situation. Dodgers, Red Sox, I wouldn't mind that. And we'll see what happens with the football this weekend. Thanks for tuning in. We're out of here. We'll see you next week.